Joey, thank you so much for being on Happy Place. We are delighted to be publishing your book, Your Manifesting Year, on Happy Place Books.
It's so exciting to be here. I know.
It's happening. Look at this gorgeous book.
I love it.
Do you love it?
I really do, yeah. It's like the scariest moment when a book comes through the door for the first time. You've seen it flat, as you'll know. And when it comes through and you love it, it's the best feeling ever.
And it's a great cover. Covers are really hard to get right as well. I'm really picky when I'm doing covers for my books. To the point where I know I'm annoying people a bit about it. But it's really important. And I love that it's just clear and gorgeous with shiny bits.
Yeah, the shiny bits all the way.
Oh, we love the shiny bits. So, your manifesting year. Let's talk about manifesting because I am forever intrigued, interested, sometimes still confused about manifesting. And I'm sure most people feel the same because if manifesting was super easy, we'd all be doing it all the time and all completing all goals and dreams. Would you say it's easy once you know how it works?
And I completely agree. And, you know, there's a lot of my friends who will roll their eyes at manifesting, you know. So I'm surrounded by people going, oh, what a load of nonsense. And so in my experience, manifesting definitely works, but it's not a quick fix. It's not something that, you know, once you've kind of figured out some sort of formula that all of a sudden, you know, life becomes so easy and everyone just, you know, adheres to your way of being and you just get what you want all the time. Because I personally think that it's the inner work. So we all have kind of limitations, we all have blocks within us, and manifesting is about really taking a look at ourselves, really getting to know ourselves, to then kind of allow ourselves to step forward into what we want. And, you know, for some things that might be a lifetime. You know, there's certain areas of my life that, you know, that I keep getting stuck. And it's actually, when I get stuck, it's not to kind of think, oh, it's all a load of rubbish or it's all my fault or, you know, back to just kind of look sort of a little bit more closer with a bit more curiosity to think, you know, what is going on there? What is the energy that I'm giving off? What is the filter that I'm seeing the world through? You know, what can I do to kind of, you know, to soothe or to heal those inner parts of myself? And then the outer world seems to kind of fit in around. So I think there's some things that might take a lifetime, unfortunately, or fortunately, because, you know, we're always evolving. But there's those little things that I think perhaps when you do kind of, you know, when you do the inner healing, that they do come a little bit quicker.
Yeah. Do you think, talking of blocks, do you think that everybody has a lesson that they're here to learn? Because I think with age, I've certainly gone, okay, I think my thing's boundaries, that I'm not very good at them, and I'm not very good at setting them. I'm confused by them. I often feel guilt and shame when I'm trying to set one. And I think most people, I mean, there is obviously sort of more minute detail with each of those things, with storytelling and what's happened and circumstance. But do you think most people have a lesson that they're trying to sort of get through to unblock themselves?
Yeah, I think so. Because, you know, if we think of ourselves as individuals, we've got our own, you know, experiences or, you know, life lessons that have shaped us to be the way that we are. That's just the natural state for every human to kind of, you know, as we're learning as children, we learn some healthy habits and some, you know, unhealthy habits, or things that are helpful and things that are, you know, unhelpful. So as individuals, we're kind of always on this path of evolution. But then as a collective as well, you know, there's so much that affects us as individuals from the collective. You know, there's glass ceilings that keep some people, you know, down. There's opportunities are different for other people. So, you know, there's this collective element too. So I think the more we can kind of take time to tend to our own healing, we are also affecting the collective, so that, you know, in years to come, you know, our grandchildren will benefit from the work that we're doing, you know. So I think it always will be there. I think that's just part of human evolution. But it's just kind of taking a bit of tenderness and compassion to ourselves, and seeing it as like a lifelong journey of evolution, rather than a destination to get fixed, you know, like, oh, I'm fixed now, you know, oh, I'm great now.
Yeah, we're never going to be fixed, are we?
And it's such a shame when you do the inner work and you get there, first of all, and you're like, I feel great, this is amazing. And then you realise there's another layer and you're like, oh God.
Or something happens in life and you're like, oh no, I'm still the flawed human that I was last month.
Yeah.
So do you think before we even get to the manifesting bit, which we'll talk about in a moment, you have to either be already doing that inner work or willing to dive into that?
Yeah, I think it is completely intertwined with manifesting. I don't think you can necessarily do one without the other. I think in the popular view of manifesting, this is where my friends do their eye rolling, and is the view that it is about materialism, that it's about these material things. And in my experience, it takes energy, it takes time, it takes perseverance to kind of to manifest things. So if we took something material, or kind of the Insta version of manifesting is being on a yacht and having a lovely time.
No thanks. I would not be manifesting. I get seasick for a start, but I would not want to manifest that.
Stay right on land. But if that is the view of manifesting, you think, what's the point? How lovely, you could manifest a holiday to Bali, and although I would love a holiday to Bali, but you could manifest a holiday, but then life is still the same.
Yeah.
So when we look at manifesting in a slightly different way, that kind of like a bit more of a holistic view of manifesting is kind of like, how can this practice help me heal? How can this practice help me build stronger relationships? How can it help me live my purpose? How can it help me, support my community and live more in connection to the planet? So it's kind of looking at manifesting with a slightly different way, and then all of a sudden you're like, yes please, I want those things.
Absolutely.
Sod the yacht, but I want those things.
Yeah, we don't want yachts.
No.
We just want to feel all right.
No.
We just want to feel a bit of peace in our heads and feel okay.
Yeah.
So in the book, you say that manifesting is where science meets mysticism. Talk to me about that. How do we marry science and mysticism?
So I love this area. I love it because I love the woo, but I don't sit fully in the woo.
Yeah.
In the woo. I have 1 foot on the earth and 1 foot,
fully in woo.
Fully in the woo. Fully in the woo.
I love it.
Sounds a bit odd, but hey.
I get it. I hear you. You've got 1 foot is in like a sensible shoe and the other is in a sort of Hessian flip-flop type shoe.
Yeah.
Or barefoot.
Barefoot
it's
with
barefoot.
loads of like bracelets,
anklets.
no, anklets. Oh.
I can visualise this. I got it.
So that idea, so anything kind of woo that comes up in my life, I'm like, oh, that's fascinating. And then I'm kind of like, has there been some research on it? Or like, is there kind of, how does that work? Or, and there's some things that will remain a mystery, I think, forever and ever, and you've got to get comfortable with that. But things like meditation, so meditation for me is where science and mysticism meet. Science is proving all these amazing benefits for us. Yet there is this deeply spiritual side to it where we do, if we allow ourselves, we kind of connect into the kind of the universal consciousness, and that's essentially where the healing takes place. And the same for manifesting for me. So there's this very kind of, if we think about it from a neuroscientific point of view, kind of we think about affirmations, the way our mind works, and the fact that we see the world because of the filters that we personally have. So we can look at it from that view, but we also have this amazing super woo, spiritual aspect to manifesting too. And it's kind of that marriage of the two for me gets me excited. It's kind of, there's a space of transpersonal psychology, they call it, where it's that understanding, that kind of looking at the both, and kind of in equal parts, not saying one's against the other, or you have to, if you're super spiritual, you can't, believe in science, and if you're scientific, it's kind of just bringing it together, and I get excited by that.
Well, like you say, even with affirmation, that if you actually sort of deconstructed how that works in the brain, that's just neuroplasticity and showing that if you keep with repetition and discipline, that you will create new neural pathways and but then you still reap the benefits of having some sort of connected experience. So it's so fascinating. In the book, like quite early on in the book, you give some, there's threaded throughout, lovely anecdotes of people that you've worked with or people that have shared their stories with you. And there's a great story that I think will resonate with many, where this young girl has this really incredible sort of coincidental experience where she sees Mumford and Sons and there's a message in the song for her that links to something else, etc. And many of us will have had an experience like that where it feels inexplicable. How did that happen? Why was that song playing? Or why did this person show up? Or why did I just see that signpost at that time? What can we boil that down to? What is that showing us, and how is that? Is that just pure mysticism and coincidence?
So I would look at that as a synchronicity, you know, so kind of a meaningful happening, kind of a meaningful coincidence. And I think if we lean into the spiritual side, you know, synchronicity is kind of these breadcrumbs that are kind of laid out along our path that kind of help us know that we are on the right track. And it requires trust because, you know, can you put, you know, something like that under the microscope and prove it? Not really. So then I go to how does it feel for me? So how does it feel to me to believe and trust in something like synchronicity, that there is this divine plan that, you know, is to trust, is to feel how it feels. And actually, if it feels good and it feels comforting and it feels reassuring to believe in this stuff, then I'm like, okay, yeah, that's for me. You know, that's what I'm gonna lean into. But yeah, those little synchronistic moments are magic, aren't they? They're just so amazing when they happen. They feel so good.
But why wouldn't we? Like, this is how massively dysfunctional we are as a society, that we would think someone, not necessarily, but some might say, leaning into synchronicities or coincidences, oh, that is a load of woo-woo nonsense, or how ridiculous. Yet we forget the concepts that we fully believe and they're man-made, like money. That's just an agreed concept. Oh yeah, we believe in money and the power of money. We believe in status. And this is all man-made stuff. It's not something that is inherently associated with being a human. This is man-made systems, and we believe in it all, and that's how the world works in often terrible ways. So why wouldn't we go, I believe in that meaningful moment? It's so weird how it's just skewed that you should see it as fanciful or mystic and weird.
It's like you know, mysticism's just been completely wiped from our the Western way of living. You know, it's not completely wiped, obviously, because there are new waves coming back through. But you know, if we look to like tribes around the world, and we look to places that are and people that are living in harmony with the earth, there is this. It's massively spiritual and mystic. You know, there is this total trust in the divine plan of everything, and you know, for us, I think, how wonderful if we could all start to lean into that trust. Like, without it, it's all down to you. It's all down to me to make things happen. And you know, and the responsibilities on me, and it weighs so heavily on so many people. It's too much.
It is.
But if we have this wider view, and there is something to trust and lean into, like, God, it feels so supportive and good. Like, why would we not, you know?
Why would we not? And I think we need it now more than ever. People are obviously very much struggling, and in the mental health capacity, it's kind of at fever pitch. And if we can find joy in, like you say, comfort, and also just a bit of magic. I think we're missing a bit of magic, and why not welcome that into your life? And I guess this is, again, the almost sort of the initiation of manifesting into your life is you've got to be willing. You've got to be willing that it could happen. You've got to be willing to see some synchronicities or to experience something that feels slightly otherworldly. It's not going to be a case of, I want this to happen, but I don't actually believe it's going to happen anyway. That's not the place to start.
Self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah.
It won't then.
Yeah. So that's really important. And to have that, I'm imagining you need to have a level of, again, this is quite tricky for many of us, to have self-acceptance, self-love, if I dare say those words. You've got to like yourself, because then from that place of self-compassion, you believe you deserve it. I think that's the thing stopping so many people, and it's stopped me so much over the years in certain areas of my life. I don't deserve for that to go well. I don't deserve to experience the joy or whatever it might be. And you have to kind of excavate that, I guess, first.
Yeah, definitely. And there's a chapter on self-acceptance, because it is, I think, such a huge part of everything. It's a huge part of well-being. It's you know, boundaries, as we talked about earlier, and, you know, everything. It's kind of, it all seems to come back to worth at the end of it. It all trails back there somehow. And it's such a good point that, you know, one of the biggest questions I think we have to get clear on in manifesting is asking ourselves, what do we want? You know, that simple question, what do we want? And then actually what we find is people will go, well, I would want that, but, you know, and then all of a sudden the lids come down, you know, dung, 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 and it keeps that want, that desire down. And, you know, so if we practice that, asking ourselves, what do we want? Lift the lid on that keeps that want, you know, what do you want? What do you want?
What if you don't know what you want?
Yeah, and I think a lot of people don't. Then I think that is almost the bit to start on. I mean, you know, all the practices that are evolved in manifesting and that are explored throughout the book are essentially about feeling good. That's all it is. It's about feeling good in the moment, you know, because exactly here is where life happens. This is where life happens. It's not in the future, you know. So if we can feel good in the moment, then that's like putting a conscious step towards this desire, this future, this want. So I'd say start there. Just start to do the practices that help you to feel good in the moment, and then spend that time just in quiet reflection, and tuning into the body, noticing how the body responds to the world, and then just for me, journaling is the biggest, you know, practice. I don't think I'd know who I am if I didn't have a journaling practice. And so, you know, just take the question to the page, like let yourself explore what it is that you want. And, you know, and I think it can be so overwhelming sometimes, because which direction do you look in? What do you start manifesting? But just come back to the present moment, come back to yourself, and just start to gently explore, you know, that question, what do I want? And you might find it leads you to a relationship. It might lead you to work. It might, you know, and start there. Yeah.
So like you just said, the foundation is you've got to feel good. And you say in the book, you can't manifest in a state of anxiety, for an example. If you're highly stressed or whatever, that's not the place to be to manifest. And there'll be many people listening to this who feel like absolute shit or are properly stressed out of their brains at the moment. What are the practices that can help with that? So you can even start this process, because if you know that feeling crap is not going to be the best starting place, there's a whole ton of work to do to even get to feel okay. So what would you suggest?
Yeah. And that, I think, also brings in another area of manifesting, which I think can be really harmful, actually. And that is the idea that, you know, it is all your thoughts or something. Because when you're in the grips of depression, you know, if you hear that narrative, often a big layer of guilt will get dolloped on top of that, you know, or you think there's something wrong with you. And it's you know, it's not about that at all. It's we can remove that layer of guilt and blame, and just be self-compassionate for where we are, you know, because even if, as we said, if we're manifesting all this stuff, we're not actually manifesting perfection. We're not manifesting this constant state of joy and, you know, calm and peace where everything is, you know, going our way and we're skipping along. You know, that's never going to happen, because life doesn't work that way. I think what a manifesting practice, and the practices that we explore in the book, so journaling, mindfulness, meditation is massive for me too, and those sorts of practices is actually helping us to become okay with where we are, you know. And there's a brilliant example, I can't remember the name of the book now, but by Esther Hicks, where she talks about a scale of emotion. And, you know, I think when we pick up this sort of stuff, we think, oh, I want to feel happy. You know, it's like from where we are to, you know, from 0 to 100. And sometimes it's just about just gently like dialing up the scale, like you would on a radio, just gently dialing, just so if you are in the grips of, you know, depression or anxiety, or you feel utterly shit, like, you know, just put your hand on your heart and say, oh, it's okay to feel this way, it's completely okay to feel this way. And you can start notching up slightly. So, you know, in that moment, what will bring you comfort, you know, what will bring you a sense of delight, like, you know, just slowly, just step by step, just inch by inch, helping yourself to feel good in the moment. And it takes time, and we need support and all sorts of things. So it isn't a quick fix, but it is definitely 100% possible for everyone. That's something I truly, truly believe. So if you are in the depths of it right now, it is possible. And through the practice of manifesting, it's almost like lighting a beacon of hope, and hope is so important. Lighting that beacon of hope in the future, so that you can slowly start to allow yourself to kind of move towards it, but just going super gentle with yourself.
Yeah, it's so important, because I think, even if I think to moments where quite recently have felt like so stressed out, or, because it's the beginning of the year, I felt drastically antisocial and I want to just hide. I don't want to see anyone. And my first thought or reaction to that thought is, there's something wrong with me. I'm a freak. What the hell? Why aren't I more social? Why don't I want to see people? And I'm not compassionate to myself. But then I also know equally, finding that thing is so important for you, like you say, whether it's journaling or whatever it might be, some mindful activity. I do this thing, and I think I only really recently realised it was sort of manifesting, is I go in the park near where I live and I put my headphones in and I listen to, like, at the moment it's a lot of Shania Twain, okay?
Yes.
I'm listening to a lot of Shania Twain.
Oh,
and it's really
old
loud.
School or new?
Both. I love Giddy Up.
Yes.
It's amazing.
Yes.
And I'll have it on really loud, and I'm walking and I feel like myself getting buoyed up, and I feel this weird, it's almost hard to articulate it, but like sort of buzzy feeling of expansion, and I'm like beaming something somewhere, and I don't know what it is, and I could just do half an hour of that, and I'm probably 60-70% happier than, or like not even happier, like more connected and more self-compassionate after doing that. So you don't have to meditate. You can listen to Shania Twain, I think is the point of me stating that. Because she always cheers me up. She's the absolute best. And I guess also, I imagine it's very important to trust yourself. Because when we look at, say you're doing these practices and you're trying to work out what it is that you want, you have no clue. And then you get a bit of an idea, like, you know what, I want a different job, or I want a partner, just as examples. They might not be the best thing for you. We don't actually know. So I think that's where I tie myself in knots. So I might go, I want a happy place to be the biggest thing it can be, to reach as many people as possible, to help loads of people. And then in my head I go, yeah, but what if that's to the detriment of your mental health? What if you don't want to do that? And then I go, oh, I don't know what I want to manifest then. So how do we follow what we... Is it what we trust is going to be good for us, and we just have to go with that?
So I think it can be helpful sometimes to realise or to know that we are always manifesting. We're in a constant state of manifesting in a way, because what manifesting is the alignment of our thoughts, our feelings, our beliefs, our actions, and that produces a result, which is the formula of manifesting in some sense. So all day, every day, we are manifesting our reality by going about things. Now, a manifesting practice is consciously choosing what we bring to life. So we're looking at the patterns in our lives, or we're looking at what it is that we want to change, and we're putting in these practices to help us move towards something that we do desire. Otherwise, we do just kind of get ourselves in a bit of a a cycle or a rut, and it can feel like, I think, we don't kind of light that beacon of hope in the future. We can sort of circle around and dig ourselves a little bit deeper and deeper. But that element of trust is so important. And like all things spiritual, there's always a paradox, which can be totally frustrating. But actually, it's getting comfortable with the paradox, that it is about the actions we take and the beliefs and the work, but it is this big whole side of trusting in the unfolding. And there's a kind of an analogy that I feel in my own life at a certain point where I felt like, I was trying to and actually it was writing. It was, I really wanted to write books. I really want to write books. And, and I really wanted my business to go well. And I wanted all these things. So I was working really, 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 really hard. But it felt like I was swimming upstream to like get these things, going and, And then, as always, life will put the brakes on somehow. For me, it was a physical brake that was put on. And, and so my body needed some rest, and I, put the brakes on, and I went into surrender mode, complete surrender mode. And it was a cellular surrender.
So did you have a health issue that stopped you in your tracks?
Yeah. So I had stage 1 cervical cancer. So it was very luckily caught in the early stages. And it was treated very quickly and easily, much like abnormal cells are treated on the cervix. But, to kind of be sat opposite that diagnosis and the other sort of issues that my body had gone through, that you kind of, it was sobering, and it was just that moment of just like, okay, stop now, just you got to just chill, you got to just
surrendering's really hard,
so hard. But in that surrender, guess what happened? The first book deal came in. Like, it was all these things just landed, and I was like, okay, I get it. Like, okay, I get it. But you can't sit there and be like, say to the universe, I'm surrendering now.
Yeah, like, where's the treats?
Like, surrendered for 5 minutes.
Yeah, come on.
Yeah. It has to be a full body thing, and annoyingly, like for a lot of people, myself included, it's sometimes these big things, or these things that happen that kind of make us do snap out of our swimming upstream. And when you let go to the flow of life, this flow that's carrying you, you're like, oh, here's the magic, here's the beauty, here are the things that I've wanted. They were all down the path of least resistance, not the swimming upstream.
Yeah, and when we're swimming upstream, we're kind of rushing as well, so we're missing a lot of the stuff that is there as either a signpost or a bit of lesson learning or just a bit of joy. We're kind of blind to it, because we're going, no, my goal's over here, I haven't got time for this. I mean, I'm very much talking about how I live all the time, that I'm just sprinting through things to kind of tick things off a list or achieve things, or I still get an immense amount of pleasure and joy from what I do, but I think I could be getting so much more if I did that mental surrender and really just observed what was going on around me a lot more than I do. Let's talk. This is a really brilliant subject that you've sort of had a dive into in the book that's tricky often to talk about, and that is luck. The concept of luck. And that we've probably all said to someone else, or been on the receiving end of, oh, you lucky bugger, or it's all right for you, or, well, my luck's down at the moment, everything's going wrong. And I think we've probably all been in that spiral of everything's going wrong. It feels like life's sort of disintegrating at times, with things just like exploding all around you, and you're like, what is going on? Can you talk to us a bit more about the concept of luck?
Yes, and I think this is where trust really comes in, trusting in the path that's unfolding, because when we can think about luck from those two sides again, from kind of a psychological side and from a spiritual side. And for some luck is just something that happens to us, it's just fate, we've got no control over it. But for others, actually, if we think about what actually is luck, and perhaps it's an interpretation. So something happens to you where you might say, oh, I'm so unlucky, but that's a label that we've put on an experience. But what happens if we're privy to the bigger picture, and perhaps that missed bus, that situation that felt unlucky is actually leading us on a path to something even greater. So it's kind of a lot of interpretation. And I reference Sliding Doors in the book, which is obviously a fantastic film, and that idea of she misses the train, and then the film watches her, the two storylines that are so different, and you kind of and every time I get myself in a situation where it could be seen as bad luck, I like to remember that and think, this could be a sliding doors moment. This could be, a moment of pure luck, even though it feels terrible. I remember not getting a job. I just moved to London. Fresh-faced and ready to go, and I didn't get this job that I really wanted. I really, 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 really wanted it, and I did all the work I possibly could, and I didn't get it, and I was devastated, and I felt so unlucky, and I just felt so awful. And then, I don't know, it was a month or so later, I ended up getting another job, which just turned out to be the best thing ever. Like, I've still got really good friends from that time, even though it's long. The best manager I've ever worked with, hands down, that I've learned so much from. It's one of those things that at the time it felt like bad luck, but just trusting in the unfolding, kind of stepping back. So what is luck? It's that interpretation, and so there's that element of control in terms of how am I viewing this situation, but just that leaning into the trust of the unfolding. And so you can see everything as lucky.
Yeah, I know, because we're definitely not taught that one. I think, especially with how the media works, and there's a lot of negativity daily that we're sort of on the receiving end of, and we can definitely get in that mindset of everything's going to shit, like in a very global sense. And I guess, like you say, there's always opportunity to go, right, well, how can I be part of something that either helps with these situations that are going on, or which path can this lead me down to be of service, or whatever it might be. There are opportunities within the bad luck or the circumstance. I
Yeah.
can certainly see in my own life how things that I really did not want to happen have led to some huge discoveries, actually, like huge discoveries I would not have had if I hadn't been through some horrific things. So I can totally see that one. And I think people find it difficult to talk about or to hear the concept of it, especially when you're going through treacherous times. It's really rough. And again, it goes back to sort of self-compassion, I guess, doesn't it? And going, you know, it's okay for me to be having these thoughts and feelings and to be struggling at this time, etc. So within the book, there's lots of different practices, as you say, and there are spells and ceremonies, because it goes through the months of the year. Most will think of sort of Harry Potter and a wand when they hear the word spells. What is the interpretation of a spell? How might we do one?
I love that.
I love a spell.
Oh, me too. So essentially, a spell for me is just is really focused intention. So a meditation, it tends to always be part of performing a spell. So we're getting really grounded and present, and we're actually just really evoking the feeling. So, you know, if we think about what feelings are, you know, energy, emotion, but, you know, we think that they belong or something outside of us will, you know, are responsible for our feelings, but actually they're always in there. Any feeling can be conjured up by the use of imagination, you know, or perhaps engaging something like the news. You know, it will bring up that. But I like to think of them, they're all in there, you know. And so a spell is about conjuring up a feeling that we want to feel. And, you know, if I've met the man of my dreams and I'm completely in love, and I dot about the day, you know, being completely in love, people would say, oh, you know, you look happy, or you're radiant, or whatever it may. We radiate this feeling that is going on inside of us. So what if in a spell we sat down and we conjured up that feeling? You know, we felt the feeling of being completely in love, and then, you know, completed the spell and went about our day. You know, which kind of energy you think is more attractive to our desires? You know, that feeling we've conjured up and we're embodying. Or, you know, that kind of, you know, the opposite, you know.
So how might you do that? What might a spell entail? Especially, I like this love one. How do we do that?
Everyone's takes it. But so it's chapter 2 on love. There's a spell in there, and it is essentially what I've just described. So you light a candle, like for, you know, that holding sacred space, lighting something to signify it's time now to step out of everyday life and to spend this time in meditation, to light the candle, to sit and just really, you know, it can be helpful to kind of remember what that feels like from the past, but just kind of to just play in your meditation with visualizations, or, you know, it could be imagining like Bradley Cooper just sweeping you off your feet.
Bradley just sprung to mind there quite quickly.
You know, here he is. Where have you been, Bradley?
Bradley?
You know, just, you know, whatever it might be, but just really allowing yourself. So sitting in that meditation and coming out of the meditation when you feel in love. And it's surprisingly easy to do, I think, you know. Try it in a meditation, like, or whatever it is that you want to feel. Close your eyes and just see if you can conjure that feeling up. And when you're there, just, you know, stub the candle out, or you can wait until in spells, often in pagan spells, it's when the candle's burnt completely out, then the spell is cast. Whether that is part of your practice or not is totally up to you as a practitioner. But once you've kind of stubbed the candle out or the candle's gone, go about your day keeping that feeling, that good feeling. And I think, you know, when you're in the pit, you know, of despair, when, like, even doing meditations like this or visualizations like this just helps us to get out, because our body believes what's going on in our mind. So if we visualize this yummy, joyful, you know, playful feeling, it's easier to kind of embody it as we move, you know, throughout our days.
But it's very nice to do something, if it is a ceremony as well, that is quite tangible, like having a candle, or if you're using anything else in your meditation or your ceremony, to sort of mark that moment. Because I think we're really missing that in the modern world. Again, we race through our day. We've all got a ton of stuff on a list that we're trying to tick off, or things that we need to do. And very rarely do we stop to have that moment of, here's the time and the space that I'm giving myself to bring these bits and bobs together, whatever it might be, and to just focus on this feeling. And it's a really simple thing to do, but we've neglected that. And also, I every time I do a dive into this sort of work, I think, why don't I know more about what sort of practices were going on in the UK hundreds and hundreds of years ago? I want to know more about witches. I want to learn more about this subject matter, because there's so much. Because I think, again, we tend to look to other parts of the world for our practices. And if that's done appropriately, then it can be a beautiful thing that we all benefit from, and we spread the joy and love around the globe, etc. If it's done with respect and that we've done the learning on the traditions. But there's so much from the UK that we just totally don't know about, that we should be really bringing back for the greater good of everyone.
Totally. And there's so much that's lost as well, which is, I kind of got into a space a couple of years ago where I was exactly the same with that. I was feeling like, like I need to know more. And we did an ancestry, when you have your DNA and it tells you where you're from.
I want to do that.
England. Basically,
you were like, I thought it was more exotic than that.
Yeah, oh God, where's the? But, I was like, how disappointing. But then part of me was like, oh my God, like my ancestors walked this land, that's like, and I know nothing about them. That, and there's a Neolithic hill fort just near to where I live that I walk the dog up to often, and every time I go up there, I just feel like this lost story, and even the story that we're taught in schools is very, the barbaric hunter-gatherers, and then, the Roman Empire came and civilization came, and then you start to think about that narrative, and you think, really, were they barbaric tribes, or were they just, tribes that lived like in complete harmony with the earth, who had songs, who had ceremonies and rituals and stories that, when that time came, they were just completely wiped out. And it's, there's this, like, every time I start to think about that, there's sort of like a longing in me to connect, because, like you say, there's so much inspiration around the globe. And I think that's why, us in the West, we latch onto it so much. We go to India and we're like, oh my God, this is, exactly what I need, because it's that lost part of, and when there's that kind of disconnection, I mean, look what happens.
Yeah, exactly. When we're obsessed with all the things we know we're obsessed with that are wrong in terms of popular culture and consumerism and everything else, it is, probably due to that lack of us understanding how we can feel more connected. Because I think when we look at nature, which is obviously a huge part of the book, but also how you live your life, and you living in rural Cornwall and having your daily walks and living much more in tune with nature, it's obviously a lot more challenging to do that in a city, but not impossible. And I think often people feel lost as to where to even start with that one. How do I cultivate more of a connection with the world around me, the nature around me? It's a tough one.
Yeah. And I think when we think about manifesting too, it's kind of, we've got to remember, as conscious beings, as people who are, are doing the work, we've got to remember that our actions have a result, and there's a bit in the bit where I'm like, the freedoms that I experience as a female in this country is thanks to the women, the sacrifice, the manifesting, the actions, the beliefs, the stuff that women who in generations before me did. And it's kind of like, when we look ahead, we're like, let's think about, what world do we want to manifest? What type of community do we want to live in? And, what actions can I take today that's actually going to have benefit for generations to come? And, and that kind of the tension that comes from where you live and how you feel, like obviously the environment has an impact on you, and and I spent the time that I lived in London going, fucking hate London.
I think most people do. It's too noisy and too busy,
too fast. It's too. But it's really interesting to live quite the opposite life, and as I was saying earlier, like to come back and to the eyes that I'm looking through as I wandered around London today was like, wow, look at all this
People.
Cafes. Like, there's food from all over the world. And, you know, there's kind of, there is that element that, you know, we are always bringing our, you know, just checking in with our perception to kind of, to think, how am I, you know, what story am I telling about this? But, I mean, London's a beautiful green city, isn't it? Really, there's some beautiful parks. So in order to get your nature fix, you know, if you do feel like you want to just go and be immersed in nature, there's plenty of opportunities in cities to do that. And even, I think, if we make it as simple as we can for ourselves. So even if it is the birds that, so, you know, in my hotel last night in Paddington, just, you know, there's not much, well, apart from Hyde Park, but, you know, and the birds woke me up this morning, and I was like, oh, it's just blissful to hear these little guys, you know, waking me up in the morning.
For you.
Yeah.
I know, it's adorable.
Yeah.
It's really important what you just said there, because we're moving in this sort of well-being world, and manifesting can often be presented as a very self-serving, singular endeavour, that I will wish for this thing and this outcome and it will happen. But like you've just said, this can be a real opportunity to go, how do I want my kids to move around the world one day? Or if you haven't got kids, how do I want the people that are going to be there way after me to be walking and moving and experiencing life on planet Earth in terms of how we're treating the planet, but also each other. And it's a real opportunity to do that. It hasn't got to be like, I need to work out my goal and I'm going to have this great job and the best new shoes. And it doesn't have to go down that route.
Absolutely. And I think the sort of the pop view of, or the, like, you know, the hashtag view of manifesting is, it or can be seen as very self-serving.
Hashtag blessed.
You know, hashtag blessed.
Yep.
You know, and that's why, like I said, I've got so many people around me rolling their eyes. They see this view of it and they think, oh, you know, and it can be really self-serving. But, you know, there's again that bit of tension between, in order to be a positive change in the world, we have to do the work ourselves. You know, it does start here, but with a view not just for me to improve my life and have a lovely time, but actually, how can I benefit, you know, the people around me? How can I benefit my community? How can I benefit, you know, issues that matter at the moment, and ultimately the Earth.
Yeah.
You know, ultimately this beautiful planet.
Yeah.
Are my actions, you know, in alignment with that value? Like, you know, what differences can I make? And not to like beat ourselves up because we can always do more, like always. But, you know, am I doing the best I can at serving that value, at manifesting a better world?
Yeah, absolutely. And talk to me about dreams, because I know that you encourage everybody to do a dream journal. How can we use an interpretation of our dreams to guide us, teach us about what we're experiencing in life?
So the idea is that our dreams will, when and where, kind of all that daily doing stuff is processed in our unconscious mind. So we get a little glimpse into our unconscious mind. Obviously, as we move about our days, we're operating in our conscious mind a lot of the time. But when we look at that pyramid, you know, where you see the 10% top of the pyramid, and then the rest of the pyramid, the iceberg, you see the iceberg, the 10% top of the iceberg is visible, and that's our conscious mind. And then the rest of the iceberg, this huge part of our experience, is our unconscious mind. And dreams help us kind of look into, or kind of get a feel for what's going on in that kind of below the conscious state that we move about in the world. So, you know, it might be that signs or symbols tend to come through in our dreams, but ultimately it's really connecting into how we feel. What's the feeling of the dream? It's not necessarily, it depends who you talk to about this, but for me, it's not necessarily about what exactly you see, or, you know. So
don't like Google spider and then go,
I mean, you could, you know.
I'm going to get some money from a relative or something, whatever it is. Or my teeth are falling out, money issues.
Yeah. And, you know, there's lots of different interpretations of dreams, and that would totally work for someone. But for me, it's kind of like, what's the feeling? And usually I'm like challenge Annika, or I'm like, you know, like trying to like.
What, in your dreams?
Yeah, in my dream, I'm solving something. Something's not quite going right. You know, I'm kind of moving through like, and then when I've had a dream like that and I look at my life, I'm like, now that makes sense, you know.
Do you know what? I'm so obsessed with dreams. And me and my friend Claire were having this chat the other day, and we have the same reoccurring dream. And I've never met anyone that has this same dream, because I've talked about it a lot. I only have one reoccurring dream, and I have it I would say quite frequently, probably a couple of times a year, I will have this exact dream where I'm in a house and it's not my house, but it's a house that I own, that I've moved into. And I'm walking around and I discover 2 or 3 new rooms that I didn't know were there, and they're massive. And I'm so excited, like, oh my God, how am I going to decorate it? What's this room going to be? And I'm excited to sort of show people these other rooms. And I wake up so buzzed when I've had that dream. It's my fave. And Claire Bennett has the same dream. Whatever next.
Jungian dream analysts are probably like shouting at like, oh my God, it means this. Like that's, But I'd say like just reflecting, what does that mean to you? How, and if it feels good, like great, like that's amazing.
Oh, it feels great.
Yeah. Look at my wonderful big rooms.
Yeah. I feel like there's some sort of expansion on the horizon, I like to think. You mentioned symbols a minute ago. How do symbols come into this conversation? You ask us to pick a symbol each month. Why is that important?
So symbols kind of act as a bit of a communication between the subconscious mind and the conscious mind. So kind of, really the subconscious mind, processes in symbols and patterns, and it really learns from the patterns rather than the conscious things that we're looking at with our conscious mind. So symbols can act as a bit of a communication tool between those two parts of the self. But also I feel like a symbol will really help us to embed an intention. So, and we can play with it, and it's so fun to play with it. So, if you, let's say you choose the number 3, for example, or something, and you're manifesting something, you're working on manifesting something, and you use that symbol of the number 3 as your kind of anchor for your manifesting practice. And then as you go about your daily life, just notice when that number 3, when that sign or symbol comes up, and
Fun.
it's so fun.
So fun. I love shit like that.
So fun. I love it too.
Yeah.
And I love those little bits that kind of come through, and it's always for me. So mine, it's a bit cliche, but a heart shape is just one of mine. And it will always show up when I need it. It will always show up when I need it.
I love that. I can't think of who it was who came on the podcast. It might have been Mel Robbins, who says to look for hearts in nature. And then you do really start to see them bloody everywhere, like rocks or twigs or leaves or whatever, to give you that nod.
Yeah, and then there's there's science and mysticism meet. So that could be confirmation bias. Psychologists might say, well, we filter information based on what we have in the forefront of our mind, which is also why manifesting works. But so if we have this symbol consciously in our mind, we'll filter information to see it more. But then on that kind of spiritual level, it's knowing that it's all there. It's all there for us to
and you
see
feel it and you feel good, so why not bloody do it? Quite frankly, I feel like, and I don't think we've ever done this on an episode, but I feel like I need a sort of summary to tie up everything we've talked about. So for people listening to this who are like, oh, bloody hell, I need to start manifesting something. Just talk us through what someone could do right after they've listened to this episode. What are they going to do?
I think, first of all, it's kind of, if you are feeling like, oh, bloody hell, I've got to do this, another bloody thing.
No, I mean it in a way like, bloody hell, I need this.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I need this.
Okay. Not like, oh, no. Practice.
No, not at all. I think we need this one.
Yeah. I think it's let's just take a step back, I think, first of all. Really set yourself up. Why don't you do your own little private ritual or ceremony? Light a candle, make it delicious, make it smell yummy, have some delicious music playing, make it just carved out sacred space for you just to reconnect. And maybe just spend time in meditation, maybe jot your thoughts down, maybe go for a walk and listen to Shania Twain. Yes. Or, my personal favourite is turning music up so loud and just dancing around the kitchen. I love it so much and I feel great for it. But do something that will help you connect with yourself and just really answer the question, what do I want? And not it doesn't have to come straight away. Maybe you can ask the universe for support and guidance and notice the signs and symbols as you go about the day. There's no time limit to this stuff. There's no pressure. Take the pressure off. See it as fun. See it as exciting and an enjoyable little journey that you can go on. But just start to get a little bit clear on what I want, on what it is that you want. And then, we have to start taking action. We have to do the inner work to kind of realise the blocks. We have to do the practices that help us feel really good in the moment. And just, there's someone said to me once, you are the researcher of your own experience. And I was like, oh, I like
Yeah, I
that
like
a
that.
lot.
Yeah, I like that.
You know, so rather than being in this stuff all the time, be the reason. Oh, how interesting!
Be curious.
Yeah. Oh, this made me feel like this. Oh, that made me feel. Oh, that worked. That didn't. You know, just kind of really see it as like an explorative play and a bit of fun. Just feeling good, tuning up, turning up that volume, just to feeling good.
I love it. I love it. Well, look, thank you, and I'm very happy to be publishing your brilliant book, Your Manifesting Year, on Happy Place Books. It's a beautiful book, even just to look at with the gorgeous cover. But I think it's going to help a lot of people. So thank you for writing it, and thank you for chatting today.
Thank you so much. I've loved it. Thank you.